For more videos and problems like this for Intro to Financial Management 301, you can check out Sarai Studies, link in the description box below.
Here's another example of how to compute the risk of an investment using this formula. We're asked to find the standard deviation of the stock for the past 4 years. So then why are we using the variance formula? Because standard deviation is just this. So if we get variance, to get standard deviation, we can just square root. So that we get rid of this and we're just left with standard deviation. So remember, anytime you're asked for standard deviation or variance, you think of Y. So think of NYPD, but just leave the YP, and then rads, like so rad. So you always want to make a box and have 6 columns, one for each of the letters. Y stands for year, P stands for price, R stands for return, A for average, D for deviation, and S for squared deviation. Remember that the return is this part, and then the average is this part, and then the deviation is this minus this. So this part, and that makes sense because deviation is how much the rate deviates from the normal rate, the average rate. And then squared deviation is just deviation squared, which is this part. And then at the end of the day, you add them all up, all of the deviations that you get here, and then divide by however many you have, minus 1. They're asking us for the standard deviation of the stock for the past 4 years. So you would think, oh, let me write 1, 2, 3, and 4 and start at the first one. Well, remember, we never start at the first one because when we calculate return, remember, no, so we can rewrite as N O over O, where this is the new price minus the old price divided by the old price. If we were to do that here, the new price would be whatever price would be here, but then there is no old price. So we never do the first row. So yes, we do have year 1, 2, 3, 4, but we have year 5 as well. Because when they ask what is the standard deviation for the past 4 years, they mean these are the only 4 years you can actually calculate because there is no old price. So there is no return to calculate. Now, they don't give us prices, and that's fine because they give us the returns. The whole point of having a price was to calculate the return. But if they give us the returns, then we don't really need this column at all. So they give us the returns, but in percentages, we need to put them in decimals. So remember, if you're not good at converting, you can always take the number, which is 7, and then divide by 100, and you get your decimal. And remember, we always skip the first row, so 0.07. And then same thing, negative 1 divided by 100 to get it to a decimal, that's negative 0.01. And then 3 divided by 100, that's 0.03. And then 15 divided by 100 is 0.15. So these are your returns. Now, what is your average return? Well, that's the average of your return. So you add them all up and then you divide by however many there are, and there are 4. So your average return ends up being 0.06. And then your deviation is just your return minus the return average. So for this one, that's 0.01. Then here we have negative 0.07. And then here we would get negative 0.03. And then here we would get 0.09. So these are our deviations. It's just how much each return deviates from the normal, from the average return, but squared. So remember to square the whole thing, put parentheses around the whole thing, and not just the number, or no parentheses like this, because this will only square this instead of this, and you'll get a negative answer. And you can't have negative answers in this column because the whole point of squaring something is so that it becomes positive. We get that. Then we get this, and here we get that. So these are our square deviations. Now we just have to add them all up. And when we do that, we get 0.014, and then we have to divide by however many returns that we have, which is 4, and then minus 1, which is really 3. And we get 0.004, and then 7 rounded. That is equal to our variance right over here. But they asked us for the standard deviation. And we know the standard deviation is just this. And this is here. It's just squared. So to undo a square, we have to square root to get rid of it and leave this by itself. So we just have to square root this. So second x squared, and then second answer, enter. And we get that our standard deviation is equal to 0.0683. And if we multiply that by 100%, we can say that the risk of this investment is 6.83%. And that's it for this video. I'll see you in the next.